I'm going to do it all in one slide. Here we go, guys. So that is the key to building an effective website. 5 steps, and away you go. Cool. Am I on time with that, Cal? Okay, right. Well, I'll go on a little bit more. So what we've got here, guys, is the 5 key points that come as part of the process. So I'm going to run through this in a bit of context as to why we have to approach it in this way. I think I've talked to you a lot about it at the tables. The key part of building an effective website is an engaging website. And how do you make sure the website's engaging? You have to engage with end users at the start of the process, and throughout the process, and again after launch. Okay? So the key steps you see here, define and discovery. We'll go into a lot of detail on that, how we do the engagements. Then thinking about the content and the design and build. Mobile is so important in that, so I'll give you a little bit of stuff on that, and then finally, launching it. A website's not finished at that point, we go on from there. Cool, so I've kind of said my time. Well, the key message is, on average, there's an 80% reduction when you're designing for mobile. So that means for a lot of companies like us, we start with that experience first, and then we design up for the desktop experience. Okay, what needs to be considered? Okay, I'm going to talk to you about design, of course, but when it comes to the build stage, the 5 steps I talked to you about, speed, performance is so important. Think about mobile devices. 3G connections can be awful. We heard from Natalie earlier talking about some of the more rural areas that they work in, and if you're on dial-up still, which some people are, the website needs to still work. It still needs to be fast, and it still needs to perform. So the good news is, number one, the latest coding languages, HTML5, CSS3, you can do a lot to reduce images, to make sure that the design is not graphic heavy, it's not heavy page weight. I'm not expecting you guys to know how to do that, so speak to whoever you're working to, or you can speak to me. The other aspect of it is reducing file sizes, so don't go putting great images of the digital champion stuff you're doing online, or of the events you run, without first thinking about compression. Your comms team should know about how to do this. So again, it's just a little tip to take home from today. And the reason for that is because Speedy Gonzalez, if it's fast on a mobile, it's going to be even quicker on a desktop, and that ultimately means a great user experience. The other thing we need to think about, which is why our design process works with engagement, is the context. Okay, people aren't browsing anymore in situ with time necessarily. We did also think, when mobiles first came out, that meant people were browsing on the go. You're on your bus home and you're doing some quick checks online. That's true to an extent, but as you see from these stats, 96% use their smartphones at home. So you might have heard of the second screen. You might be watching X Factor and you want to tweet up and say how annoyed you are, or Simon Cowell, how mean you was to that person. You use the phone a lot at home. 80% do use it as much about the mobile browser as we potentially did about the desktop user. So the key thing is quick and simple interactions. Okay. So the key when you're building a site is to understand the quick. Then we need to prioritize. Okay, and we apply information architecture principles. That is the key to building. If you don't do this at the start, the end product won't be good. Search and architecture, all you like, and best practice. The key theme to it running through is, how do you know what they want? You ask. So you have to engage with users. And if we go back to my 5 steps, the simple design and build and launch and beyond, your web provider should do all that. What you guys want to make sure happens, and you speak to many of your comms teams or your engagement teams, or if you're all from comms or IT here, get the residents involved at these workshops. Try and do them in the community if you can, rather than getting them to come to you guys. So, what does the first step look like when we do the engagements? We do the workshops. We're engaging with internal stakeholders as well as external. I talk to you a lot about this. People that do the engagement in the communities, you're much more on the pulse than maybe the senior management that we also engage with, because they might be saying, our 5-year plan is that we need to drive transactions up more online and calls down 50%. Great, well, you guys know the kinds of things that might be useful to residents. Residents know the kinds of things that they want to get out of the site. And that's the key. That's the key of doing these workshops, is to think about user journeys. And you can only really do that by engaging. So, I thought what I'd do is pick a couple of examples. It's weird for me being here because I like to walk around a lot normally. So yeah, pick a couple of examples of some of the techniques that we use during the engagement sessions and just show you what they look like really. So the first one is something which you can do on your current site. You can suggest to the people that manage the site, if you guys in the room don't, do a card sort exercise and try and group your content. You come across a lot of websites where it's links everywhere, whereas actually you need to think about what do the residents want, what are the key bits of content that are key stakeholders of the site, can we group the site and the navigation around that, so the homepage is enough. Here's a workshop we ran at Muir Group, so I don't know where Bev is from Muir Group, who's there, hello. So yeah, you might recognise a couple of the faces there. It's with some of the neighbourhoods team and Cass there from the content team. But the key thing again is to get each group to do some card sorting. Tell us what the key content items are. Let's write them all down. What people have been saying in the communities, gas safety information, money management advice, excellent. Let's put those things on a piece of paper and let's try and group them in a logical fashion. And then you can see the little blue lines on the right there. That's our little technical expert there on the right, putting together an idea of some internal linking structure. So if you guys group the content and engage with users, we'll worry about how to build the site around that when we actually come to do it. Really useful exercise. The other one, which is a bit of fun, which I think I strongly recommend, it's also very useful from a design perspective. You can't ask your residents to design the website for you. I mean, we've come across website residents that have skills, as well as obviously the ones that don't, that you guys have been talking about today. But what's really useful is if you ask them what they want to see on the website, wireframes, okay, they're a low fidelity way of representing what's on the page. And here you can see you've got our creative director. He's explaining how a wireframe works, what you do with a wireframe. And then these are some wireframes that have been sketched by actual residents at a workshop. So a wireframe is essentially the key bits of a page, rather than getting hung up on the look and feel, the branding, or I don't like the fact that green is the colour, or let's not talk about it now. They've got them to draw what the homepage might look like, and you can see that they're telling you very clearly, we expect search to be very prominent. We want to see a news feed. We want to see who are the different teams, across the organisation. So it allows us as designers to then pick through all of the different wireframes people have sketched and find trends. They're a really useful tool. The final one I wanted to talk about is you do want to think about it visually. You do want to get feedback, likes and dislikes across the web. Okay, so at the engagement session, having a look at mood boards is a really key tool. Mood boards are a group of sites that have a similar look and feel. If anyone wants to try this when you're doing some engagement or digital champion work, you should, because it's really, really interesting, and I always see it's very emotive when we see people looking at this in the workshop. So I like this picture, which is again from the Muir Group workshop. If you just start to look at it, you can see how somebody's immediately drawn to one mood board. It's very subjective. There's a clear preference on the visual direction that they'd like to see the site have, and those are some mood boards. So yeah, just to give you some context there of what they look like and how they work. You can see sites that have a different, similar colour palette and the heading styles. They're a really useful tool. Okay, cool. So that's really the heart of the engagement. Now I'm just going to flick through a few sites and talk to you about some of the aspects of the engagement session that were really useful. You all saw this site earlier, so what you didn't see, because I didn't talk about it, was that the portal actually came from residents. They said we want to be able to transact, we want to be able to do all these services online in this instance. So we were like, okay, we're going to build the portal, we're going to have a naming competition for the portal so that the winning resident will win an iPad that we supplied, because that keeps them engaged, and it was a good experience. From a user journey perspective, streamlined it, as I said, so there's 3 key pathways, and the design itself reflects those pathways, and it's relevant to the community. All the residents said, we don't like the current website because there's loads of iStock imagery of happy, smiling residents outside their homes, holding babies, but none of them are actual tenants, and that really grates on us, whereas this is actually relevant to the local community. Those are actual renewable housing developments that they live in. So yeah, keep them involved. Feedback on that has been great, but I've shown you that before. The other site I wanted to look at was a bit of a before and after for Dale Valley Homes. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to look at, that was the site when we first engaged with them, and I talked about link-heavy sites. That's quite a good example. Don't think I'd be offending anyone because SJ was new when we did the project, so she was involved in that. You can see they've got all the transactions there, do it online, there's lots of stuff, but we launched the new site and we isolated the key transactions that the residents identified, which you can see depicted in the nice illustrative icons there. Pay your rent, find a home, report a repair, my account online. And by doing that, it's one click away for the user. And you'll see for from the Google Analytics, the actual user experience is clearly a better experience because analytics backs this up. The bounce rate, so people that come to the site and leave immediately, has dropped from 50% to 25%, which is a big drop. Before, 1,460 visitors, now 1,460 visitors have been directed directly to the Apply for a Home page, compared to 586 in the 2 months before the site got launched. My account, it wasn't even registering on Google Analytics before, people just weren't finding it. Now, just within one click, after the first month of launch, they've had 363 users. So I think the key thing just before I finish is that on that design, it's been designed with mobile in mind, so that tile-based design is very important now, so that all of those areas where the squares are, they're clickable links. So on a touch screen, I don't need to pinch and zoom, I can just hit the thing I want to click on and it takes me straight to the content. So thinking about the mobile at the start is very important. Good, so that's really it, I think, on building an effective website. I know I kind of went into a lot of detail on engagement, but I think that's most relevant for this particular audience. The other thing to say about it is that websites aren't kind of finished ever. I'm just going to focus on these examples. A website's never finished, so really, it should be constantly evolving and enhancing. So I give that message to you guys to go back to your comms teams, or if you're in comms, to say, could we be doing some more engagement and workshops to validate what we're doing? The stats that we've got from those sites is because we continue to engage with our customers once they've gone live with quarterly health checks, check on the website performance, see where things are working well and where things can be improved. And then of course you also need to have the tools at the back end to be able to manage it. So our content management system, we looked at it a little bit earlier on, but it's to try and empower people so that you can keep making changes, and gone are the days of leaving the site for 5 years. You want to be constantly measuring and refining what you're doing. Excellent. So that's it from me. If anyone has any questions, we'll be around for a little bit. Otherwise, yeah, we'll speak to you all soon.